From the police state to tectonic plates, touch, sense, and tattoo take the temperature of tyranny on Freedom Frequency 1871, coming to you live now.
This is America. We have a founding fathers that wrote a constitution that we haven't lived by in 142 years.
Were they serious when they said they planned on owning the weather by 2025?
And if you're not pissed off, there's something wrong with you right now.
Have you guys seen what's going on outside your door lately? Need I remind you?
This is America. Are y'all going to allow it to be Russia?
Welcome back to Freedom Frequency 1871. This is our final segment. We got a couple callers on the line and one person holding over. But before we get back to the caller, I want to remind everybody, and Tat will agree with me on this, that all these problems we're talking about, all the corporations, all the unjust laws, all the unjust activities, and the subterfuge can be traced back to one thing. And that's the Act of 1871, which I encourage you guys all to go look up, and specifically the abolishing of the Act of 1871. That's all on Tat's website, tattoot1009.com, and it's worth the look. All these problems, the water wars, the oil, the fracking, the corporations, it all goes back to that, the allowing of the corporate government to control your life.
To take over and destroy our lives.
Yep. So, okay, so caller, real quick, I do have to finish this up real quick and get the other two people before this end of this next show. Did you want to finish up what you were saying?
Not necessarily. Congrats, guys. It's great. I'll stay in touch as a whole regular. That's about it.
Cool.
And, that's when my great-grandfather left Missouri. And, right that year, and homesteaded, and everything from then on has been a mess.
Missouri was the pushing off point for millions of people, and it's the gateway to the West for a reason. And hey, if you're ever feeling like calling back in, I'd love to talk to you some more. We just had a great conversation. I appreciate that.
It's safe. Bye.
Cheers, brother.
Bye-bye.
All right, now we got Gregory on the line, and then it looks like we got Julio on the line. Julio, the intrepid reporter that we've sent around the country doing weather mod investigations. And Gregory is on Skype, I think. Gregory?
Hello, you wonderful people.
Hello, how you doing?
Great, man, great. I just want to say all of us at the Gamley are so proud of you guys, You're up there doing it for the rest of us. I myself am in England, and I've been listening, and I've known you guys now for about 3 years, even though you don't know me. And I just want to say it's great what you're doing. I do have a question, though. You're always talking about harp and frequencies, but I don't hear much about this other side of the harp and the frequencies affecting people's minds. Now, we've seen plenty of documentaries on the fact that they can put stuff into people's heads, but I'd like to hear more about it. What's your opinion?
They did use harp, according to source, said that when the first Iraq war happened, that's the reason why everybody just gave up, because they were using frequency on them, and I kind of believe that in my own aspect. But the main reason why I don't really talk about it a whole lot is mainly because people they don't want to hear it. Some people don't want to hear it, or either they just don't want to believe that frequency can control you in that manner. And it's all depending on what frequency. You can sit in front of a high voltage power line for a long period time, you'll get antsy. You feel hot when it's cold. Your brain you feel like you get a headache or itchy throat. It can be coming from high voltage power itself, not just from HARP. We call it HARP, but there is multitudes of reasons for that. Microwave frequencies in our country, United States, our cell phones was changed from 200 megahertz to 2.4, and it would just devour your brain. I mean, there's so much about frequency that we, the people, don't know. And, it's other people that need to know it.
Well, this is one of the things I was thinking about. What if, instead of using it like big time, they're using it subtly to affect the people's minds who allow the usage of it?
Yes.
I mean, they could cover their own tracks by utilizing it.
Yes. Oh, yes. And, I can confirm people like respectable people, such as Dr. Nick Begich, for instance, has done the experiments. There's a great episode, of all people, there's Dr. Nick Begich hooking up Jesse Ventura to a series of, what are small transmitters, small little radio transmitters. And he was playing music for Jesse Ventura inside of his brain.
Exactly. And one of the other things is the amount of people that are coming forward with stuff that are suddenly being locked away in mental asylums after saying they're hearing voices in their heads.
Something happened to Coney 2012 that wasn't drugs. You remember Coney 2012 out there beating his hands on the street corner, nude, running back and forth, and no drugs in his system.
Yep.
The mind control aspect, what most people, for the average viewer who doesn't know what we're talking about, first of all, we're talking about the use of frequency to influence your mind. And like you can imagine, if you were inside of a microwave oven, you would be confused slightly for a slight millisecond before certain bad things start to happen to your body. But on a lesser scale, how can I describe this? Electromagnetic fields. Have you guys ever seen these ghost hunter shows on TV? There's all different kinds. There's ghost hunters. There's, I don't know maybe in the UK you have a version of that. It's the paranormal shows where they go and do the ghost hunts, and they pull out their electromagnetic detectors, and they're walking through the house, and they're like, I got an EMF hit, and the EMF hit that they're getting is usually off of some kind of exposed wires in the wall. And you'll hear these paranormal investigators say, look at this thing. This whole basement's filled with open wire. No wonder you feel feelings of dread. No wonder you feel feelings of paranoia like you're being watched. Electromagnetic fields are known to cause those effects in people's minds. So if that can happen from a regular wall outlet that's resonating on it's not resonating on the same frequencies that microwaves would, your brain itself functions on a frequency. And if that frequency can be matched, then it can be mimicked. And if it can be mimicked, then it's just a matter of knowing what codes to send to your brain to have a certain reaction happen. And they've already done the experiments. They've already done everything. And now it's to the point where you've got people talking about it being used on a military level. And that's where we're at today. So if you ask me, do I believe that HARP could be used over vast populations? Technically, yes. Technically, sure. Because it can hit anywhere between 0.0 hertz and 10 megahertz. So it can hit anywhere in between. And if you can hit the lower is where your brain's going to be functioning on. That is the portion where we'd be worried about. And of course, smaller devices. Let's just throw HARP out of the picture. Let's just say they've got a dish and they're pointing it at your house. We already know that they did that to the embassy. You remember the Iranian embassy or the Russian embassy supposedly was targeting, or the Russians were supposedly targeting our embassy and causing cancer and causing people to go mad. It's wild, isn't it? So you raise a good question. I'm glad you did. We're going to do several episodes on HARP and mind control and frequency and cell phones and the whole bit. That's going to be a large focus of our broadcast going forward into the future.
We got 15 minutes when we got to get Julio on here.
Well, last thing then, what the guy said before brings about changing possibly the American anthem to the land of the free and the home of the slave. What do you think of that?
I love it because that's exactly what it is. It's the home of the slave. And we have been that way for 142 years, and no one's really welcome to that effect. And if and it's
again,
like this,
thank you
if
from
America falls, the rest of the world will fall. Because we don't have a little bit of freedom. And you agree with that.
Sorry, Tat, we're getting like a big breakup on your end. It's like cutting out for me. I don't know. You may want to refresh and try.
I've done that 3 times. They don't want me to talk. They don't want me to talk.
Because you speak the truth, brother.
That's right. They don't want me to talk, so they can bite me.
That's right. They can kiss the big one. You know, I want to give my love back to the Gamily too, a group of researchers and individuals who I value tremendously. And cheers, mate, to all my friends over in the UK. I've got friends down in Devon. I've got friends in Cambridge. Hope they get a listen at some point. And you know, if I'm ever over in the UK, bro, we'll have to meet up and go have a pint. Okay?
You got it. Guinness on me.
All right. Cheers. Let's get on to Julio. Now, Julio, guys, if you don't know who Julio is, he is someone who has been a tremendous friend to me over the past 2 years. We, my viewers, flew him around the country to Washington, D.C., to California, to Texas. He attended multiple weather modification conferences. Julio got us on a Council on Foreign Relations phone call. He got us in and he asked about cloud seeding weather modification directly to CFR. He's interviewed all kinds of people. Really, I mean, this guy is our community reporter who I think should be paid for what he does, but does not get a check. He's on the phone now, I think. Julio, are you there?
What's going on, Dutch and Tatchute? I hope you guys are doing well. Great show.
Hey, Julio. It's nice to meet you, man, for the first time.
Yeah, it's nice to talk to you for the first time.
And welcome, Julio, man. It's good to hear your voice. I appreciate you calling. How's it going?
Yeah, anytime. I'm doing well. Thanks for that nice intro. I've been doing well. I've just been really scratching my head these last few days, yelling at my television on so many fronts. Yesterday there was a Senate hearing on climate change, because we have massive amounts of climate change taking place. It was under Senator Barbara Boxer of California, and it was quite an interesting hearing yesterday. And then my good friend, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, who's featured on Genetically Modified Society, the documentary that I created and Dutch helped along with that documentary. Senator Whitehouse was talking about climate change, and it's just so fascinating to see that. And then on top of that, I'm focusing on what's going on in Ukraine, the Eastern European country, where I think it was 2 weeks ago, you had John McCain, Senator McCain of Arizona, at a speech at the Brookings Institute called for a technocracy in Ukraine. Now, in Ukraine, they have these anti-EU protests going on, but underneath that, you have really violations of the Logan Act taking place from people like Senator McCain, like George Soros, like Monsanto Corporation, which is located just outside of your neck of the woods, Dutch, in St. Louis. You and I, we went to the headquarters. But all these different outside interests are funneling money in Ukraine to destabilize the country and to create larger tensions with Russia. And then there was a hearing 2 days ago in the Senate about the anti-EU, the pro-EU protests, anti-government protests taking place in Ukraine. So much stuff is going on. It's so hard to wrap my mind around this, and so frustrating being in Chicago, seeing all this news unfold in D.C., wishing I was there to ask these tough questions, but so be it.
Well, we're going to have to get you around. I'm serious. You serve the best function ever when you're just in general, if you're a researcher like you are, Julio, that when you're actually able to go out and bring something back to the community, I mean, guys, Julio's been featured on, I mean, he got harassed by the TSA. You guys may remember this. A guy walking through the airport gets harassed by the TSA, gets it on recording. He comes back to a separate place, and the cops chase him down. That's Julio, okay? What he's talking about, especially the Ukraine, that's kind of creepy because the Ukraine is the breadbasket for the region. And so you wonder, what's the big deal with Ukraine? What's with the revolutions there and everything with the... Why is everybody so focused on there? It's another one of these democracy zones, right? Not a republic, a democracy zone. And they are trying to destabilize the region specifically for food control purposes, which ties in with Monsanto and the whole thing that's going on with genetically modified foods and trying to get a grip over there because our company, our corporation, the United States corporation, is trying to take over other corporations. They are using the arms of the tentacles of their corporation, which are other corporations like Monsanto, to go out and try and conquer the world. And so they're doing it in Europe. They're doing it everywhere. And Julio also brings up Barbara Boxer, and we're talking climate change being discussed here in the United States, this climate change. Notice it went from global warming, right, Julio, to climate change.
Right. It's funny you say that because on CNN, during this whole polar vortex fiasco, Piers Morgan Live, he interviewed some guy, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but when discussing climate change, the guy even said, oh, well, we're changing it from global warming to climate change because not only does it sound better, but it just, it grasps the whole real issue of what's going on. So, yeah, you're right, Mitch. The original claim from global warming has changed to climate change. We talked about this in numerous conferences.
Mm-hmm. And they've done that on purpose, guys. It's the old shell game. It's the switcheroo, which is climate change could mean anything. It could mean hot. It could mean cold. It could mean excessive. It could mean minimal. I don't believe in global warming per se when I find out that the Europeans have a radar array called SPEAR, SPEAR, that they use as a polar heater to do polar heating experiments over the North Pole from Tromsø, Norway, just north of Norway. They've got this radar array that they pump high frequency up into the upper atmosphere in the polar regions up to hundreds, if not thousands of degrees, and do experiments, quote unquote. Well, if they're going to be heating the poles with high frequency microwaving the poles, then how are we going to talk? Yeah, it's man-made climate change, all right, but it's not coming from your SUV or your can of hairspray. We're talking about man-made climate change that is intentional.
Well, here's even a crazier story, Dutch, and that is the fact that we're getting more openness to the discussion of geoengineering. You had Michio Koiku, right? Judge, you're referring to me. I saw that video, and he was on CBS this morning. You had the Colbert Report on Comedy Central interviewed David Keats, professor out of Harvard, talking about geoengineering. It's even getting to the point now where you have National Public Radio doing a piece on geoengineering, the London Telegraph, the London Guardian, the London Daily Mail, USA Today. I mean, you name the corporate media outlet, and they're talking about geoengineering, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. They're posing that question like it's normal. Oh yeah, let's modify the weather. Let's spray barium and let's dim the sun through solar radiation management. We don't talk about whether or not that's a good idea to do. We already know that this is going on as we speak. You have the video on YouTube. It's on Genetically Modified Society, where the director of National Weather Services, at least on camera, appears to be oblivious to weather modification. Yet at a WeatherMod conference in San Antonio, I was told numerous times, oh yeah, we use National Weather Service radar and satellites. So, I mean, this is already happening, although we haven't had the discussion, should this happen, it's already happening.
That's right. They've already made the decision, guys. We are talking about, and what Julio's referring to, again, is a documentary that Julio and I put out called Genetically Modified Society, And it recovers everything from genetically modified foods to modification of weather. And Julio, face-to-face with the director of the National Weather Service and the director of the Severe Storm Prediction Center, up on stage, well, first, while they're up on stage, asked the question from the crowd, then afterwards goes up face-to-face, point-blank asked him about weather modification, current weather modification activities that he's knowledgeable of. And now, keep in mind, Julio's probably got in his back pocket or out in his car all the printouts from Idaho 2012, from the weather modification conferences that we sent him to, where the National Weather Service and NOAA partnered up with West Texas Weather Modification Association to do cloud seeding spraying from airplanes, and they had their results listed. Julio went to the conference. Then he goes and meets with the National Weather Service director, who says, oh, well, we don't know about any of those programs. There are no government-sponsored programs. Meanwhile, the aquifer authorities, local government, are paying for the dang thing, and he then fully denies current activities. And they use a 1970s example of weather modification gone awry, which is Project Storm Fury. All the scientists and skeptics will use that as their example, 1970 disaster in weather modification. And meanwhile, they're augmenting the snow in Colorado. Meanwhile, they're augmenting the aquifers in the Midwest. They're spraying, guys. It's not a question of if, it's how much and what. And we only have a few minutes left, Julio. I've got maybe 2.5, 3 minutes left. Let's just say on the air right now, Julio, to the world, that they can count on another documentary, maybe not an hour and a half long, because we learned our lesson on length, but on quantity, I think that we're going to have to do another documentary, but this time fully focus solely upon weather modification and take it to the next level on trying to get people to talk to us, since we already have some big name interviews with the CFR. Good job, by the way, and all the other conferences you went to.
Thanks a lot. I agree. I think it's apparent. I mean, there are documentaries out there that discuss geoengineering programs, and those films are fantastic. I'm not knocking them, but I think it's much more powerful visually when you get to see people like the director of National Weather Service deny weather mod. And I agree. I am definitely willing to put myself on the front lines to go to these conferences and ask these questions, just rather than trying to pressure you to come with me to some of these conferences, because it's definitely lonesome on the road going to these events by yourself. But if funding's available, if people want to help, myself and Dutch out with this project, you can guarantee that I won't stop until I find these answers. Whether it's Freedom of Information Act request, whether it's going to these conferences and speaking to these people directly, whatever it takes.
Yeah. And guys, the way we'll do it is, when it comes time for this to happen, and it will be in the near-term future here, I mean, we're already in 2014, that Julio is his own manager, he's his own fundraiser, he has his own stuff. Before we financed it, and we're going to ask you guys to help do it again when it comes to getting him around. We've got some awesome stuff that we could get done. We've got people that are willing to talk if we can get to them. We're talking, areas around the country, maybe even possibly around the world where Julio might have to go. When it comes to me going, I've got a few things going on here personally in my life that are probably going to prevent me from traveling, at least in any time around in this year. Julio, you are so much appreciated for everything you've done and for getting the stuff that you got. Everybody should go look up Genetically Modified Society. It's on my page if you want to go find it, or just search Genetically Modified Society on YouTube and you will find it. We are down to a few seconds left, guys. I want to thank everybody for calling in. Greg, Bart, Greg again, and Julio. You guys are awesome, and I like doing this show. Tat, you want to say bye too?
I'll do my best, and don't forget the night show with Chrissy with Lies Wide Open and Monty.
Yep. Just a few minutes, guys. Lies Wide Open. Stay tuned. We'll be in there.
Thanks for listening to FPRN. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter.
If you'd like to start your own show with FPRN, advertise with us, or donate to the network or to your favorite shows, check out our website at www.fprnradio.com.